Well, mandatory minicamp set to kick off around the NFL, while in Baltimore, the Ravens will have to wait for QB1 a little bit longer, maybe. Lamar Jackson was absent from OTAs, and there's no secret. This all stemming from him wanting a new deal there in the Charm City with the Ravens. But neither side has kind of budged this offseason. I like to call him Freaky L. Could be next in line when it comes to the big payday, though. We've seen what he's done on the field. Not to mention the 2019 MVP likely waiting to secure that top dollar. Some have already done that so far. That would put him in that elite quarterback category when we're talking the young tier of QB1s, the Patrick Mahomes, the Josh Allen, the Dak Prescotts, the Deshaun Watsons, who all got paid big bucks. If you go back to 2024, it's Mahomes checking in with that 450, but Lamar Jackson hoping to be next in line. All right, joining us now, Ryan Harrison checking on HQ as we look at some of those storylines. And I want to break this down as we look at overrated and underrated storylines, starting there with Lamar Jackson in his contract situation in Baltimore.
Well, that is overrated, Brandon. This deal gets done as soon as they get to the season, provided Lamar Jackson's healthy. What was that Brown field, by the way? Come on, Ravens. I mean, they're happy to have you focus on their offense, too, while they have new coordinator Mike McDonald and practically a new secondary, adding two Fullers, Kyle Fuller and Kyle Hamilton. So they're doing great things as a team. I think this deal gets done. It's kind of weird that it hasn't yet, but you understand if you're the Ravens, they had just signed their left tackle, Ronnie Stanley, to one of the biggest deals in offensive line history. He then had an ankle injury, was unable to play. So they're about health. They don't want to get bit by that injury bug. Lamar Jackson, this deal gets done. This is an overrated storyline in the offseason.
All right, so number 8 gets paid there in Baltimore, of course. A few weapons already leaving the building. We talked about Hollywood Brown not too long ago. Elsewhere, how about Deebo Samuel? Still trying to get out of San Francisco. No movement there between him and the 49ers, but he is unhappy. Overrated or underrated storyline here?
This is underrated, and it's increasingly becoming an underrated story. If you're Deebo Samuel, you're saying, who's throwing me the ball? Secondly, I mean, things are so kind of out of whack there in San Francisco. The 49ers moved up mandatory minicamp. I never heard of that in my 10 years in the NFL. This is a dysfunctional situation turning worse by the day. And even if they retain Deebo Samuel, who's saying he's done running the football, you don't know what kind of runner or player you're going to get if you're the 49ers. So even having Deebo Samuel's on the roster, does that still help you the same way it does last year? I don't know. And excusing Jimmy Garoppolo from the mandatory minicamp, I've never been excused from anything in my life. And I know that's a new phrase in the NFL. So this is an underrated storyline. I'm not sure what's happening in San Francisco.
So question marks, as you mentioned there, when it comes to the QBs, assuming that Trey Lance is QB1 heading into the season. Elsewhere, Orlando Brown still looking for that long-term deal with the Chiefs that has not happened. Is that underrated or overrated when we're talking about the protection there for Patrick Mahomes?
Well, this is overrated, and simply because the Chiefs have been clear that they want to get Orlando Brown Jr. to a long-term deal. They wouldn't have parted ways with Tyreek Hill if they didn't believe they could. But what's strange is Orlando Brown Jr. didn't have an agent for like the last 3 months. He finally has found one. So I believe this deal gets done before the July 15th deadline. And a good long-term contract for Orlando Brown Jr. means a healthy Patrick Mahomes for Chief Kingdom for long-term.
You talk about healthy. It seems that Rob Gronkowski is pretty healthy. We've seen him everywhere except for on the football field this offseason. Look, he's flirted with retirement before, said he would return. If he does return, it would be Tampa. But overrated, underrated that we might see Gronk here back with TB12 this year?
Overrated. Of course we're going to see Gronk back. Do you think that Tom Brady really gave Rob Gronkowski a Subway commercial and expects nothing in return? He's hanging out with his buddy. They showed some videos of them having batting practice. Whenever Tom Brady's tired of this, he's going to say, hey, Gronk, why don't you come on back? Let's win an 8th ring together. I mean, this is going to be something epic that everybody wants to be a part of in the NFL, coaches and players alike. Seeing Tom Brady get to 8 rings, if that's possible, that's something we'll talk about for the rest of our lives, football fans. This is an overrated story. Rob Gronkowski's coming back, and they're bringing Subway sandwiches for the offensive line.
Gronk at TB12 got that ring not too long ago for Tampa Bay. Odell Beckham Jr., he has the latest Super Bowl ring for the Rams, but doesn't have a new home. We thought he'd be back with the Rams, but that has not been the case. Is he going elsewhere? Is that next home somewhere? Or is that overrated, underrated? How are we looking at this for OBJ?
This is an underrated story. Odell Beckham Jr., in my opinion, was on his way to winning the Super Bowl MVP. Remember, he had 2 catches, 52 yards, 26 yards per catch before he got injured. Cooper Kupp got it about just over 11 yards per catch, if I remember correctly, and had a dynamic fourth quarter. But Odell Beckham is so good. Not only do the Rams want him back, but the Saints want him, and even the Browns have talked about bringing him back. That's how much he proved something for the first time in his career last year, that he can help a team win. This is an underrated story, and of course, Odell Beckham Jr. wants a long-term deal, but with that injury, it's going to be tough to get one from a team in the NFL. But I really like Odell Beckham Jr. finding his spot, helping a team win later on in the season, and hopefully getting back to a Super Bowl. This is an underrated story, Brandon.
All right, we'll see how that pans out there for OBJ. Ryan Harris is always breaking it down for the NFL as we head into those mandatory minicamps. Appreciate your time.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.